Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. I have an unboxing for you today, and it is a game that I have played but did not own until our friend John Longshore sent me his copy of Korea: The Forgotten War from Multiman Publishing, game designer Rod Miller, and series designer Dean Essig. This is, of course, OCS Korea, which, like I said, I have played. It's actually a really fun game. And it's funny that this actually showed up here on the same day as the new Compass Games version of the classic Victory Games Korean War. So let's open her up. Now, this is the sort of oddball, and I think it's an oddball box because nobody else does games this size in a box this size. Sort of 1.5 MMP box. And it is in the shrink wrap, as you can see. Thanks, John. There's other things that he sent me, by the way, one of which will be making it into the next giveaway, so stay tuned for that, which will not be too far away. The box feels fairly heavy. 3 maps, 4 counter sheets, plus 2 giant books. So let's open her up and see what we have here in OCS Korea. Like I said, none of the contents are going to be a surprise to me, since I have played the thing already. Nevertheless, this was really the last OCS game that I didn't have that I wanted, because like the super old ones have all been replaced. And I have the replacements. I didn't have this. And this is actually the second version of this. For those who say, by the way, that MMP does not reprint anything, this is the second printing of Korea: The Forgotten War. Not huge differences between the two, other than that the box looks quite different. And I frankly think this box looks a lot better than the old one. We do have a card inside. This should contain a box and a lid, 3 22 by 34 inch map sheets, 4 counter sheets, 1 OCS V 4.1A series rulebook, 1 Korea: The Forgotten War rulebook, 2 OCS V 4.1A charts and tables, 2 Korea: The Forgotten War charts and tables, and 2 dice. Okay, so OCS Korea rulebook. As is typical for the gamers group, it is 40 pages. It is average sized print for war games, I would say. Those of you who have seen the inside of an OCS game or a SCS game or a BCS game will find the layout very comforting. It is, let's see here. There's not a ton of special rules here. OCS is not a simple game system, and it is definitely what we call fiddly. I should do a whole video on what does fiddly mean at some point. But that aside, it has an additional 8 or so pages of game-specific rules, which includes optional rules, and which is not that much. Actually, it's only about 6 pages of rules. About 2 of those pages are options. And you can see that we have tons of scenarios, as is also typical for OCS. We have, well, let's look at them, actually. We have the Korean War. This is the whole first year of the Korean War, from 26 June 1950 to 29 June 1951. This is scenario 5.2, which takes place in 1950. Scenario 5.3 on the Naktong. I gotta tell you, I am not good at pronouncing Korean names, as has been firmly in evidence every time we've played a game on the Korean War. This is August 1950 to June 1951. And that is the Pusan perimeter scenario. One of the key things that you need to understand about this game, especially when playing the North Koreans, is that Pusan perimeter, because you have to basically push the South Korean / UN forces behind it in a certain amount of time, or you are penalized relatively heavily. Scenario 5.5, MacArthur's Triumph, which is just a few turns in September 1950. Scenario 5.6, Incheon, September 1950 to June 1951. Chosin Reservoir, November to December, late November to mid-December 1950. So this is, I don't know, 5 or 6 turns, something like that. Enter the Dragon, a short scenario which covers the first month of Chinese intervention, November-December 1950. Here's another Chinese intervention. Ridgway, who is MacArthur's replacement, by the way. Duels for Korea. This is January to June of 51. Scenario 11, CCF 4th Phase Offensive. February 51 to June 51. So, as you can see, there's an excellent scenario selection. Operation Ripper, March 1951, including quite a few short scenarios. Scenario 13, Chinese Spring Offensive, April to June 1951. And that's the last one. And now we have the arrival schedules for the communists and the UN, and then we have some developers' notes, which I have not read. If you don't know, all of the OCS rules and stuff are available on the OCS Depot website. Designed by Rod Miller from a series designed by Dean Essig. Research, Maurice Buttazzoni, Sam Simmons, Al Wambold, and Peter Corrigan. And let me glance through the playtesting list to see who I recognize. And nobody I personally play with playtested this game. So there's that. All right, so we have a counter sheet. Let's set the counter sheet aside because this book we are not going to go through because it is the OCS series rules. 4.3, I believe, is the current version. So this is, and the differences between like 4.1 and 4.3 are minuscule. We do at least play with the current rules, whatever those are. The only game you really can't do that with is the original Guderian's Blitzkrieg. So I'm told you really kind of need to play that with its original rules, but every other game can pretty much just be brought up to this current standard. And this is a 48-page, relatively small print rule book. Like I said, it's not a simple game, but I've never found it to be enormously complicated. We have a map. MMP does this odd thing. It's a little bit weird with components, and presumably it has to do with how they collate their stuff. Here's a player aid card with abbreviations, rebuilds, amphibious landings, and on the other side we have our supply and replacements and terrain effects. Okay, here is another map. Here is the other die, which ended up on the bottom. And then we have the 4.1a charts and tables. Should we have two of these? Do we have two of these? We do. Okay. All right, hold on a second. So one of the things that this was revised in the current rule book, or the current rules version, I should say, and generally speaking, I think the new one looks a lot better. But one thing that this does, that this version, this little orange version does, is it puts the barrage table and the combat table on the same side of one sheet, which means that you can either keep it like this or backfold it and not have to open the little booklet to get to one of the two most commonly used tables in the game. This was good design at the time, and I don't know why they changed that, because I still, and like the actual tables are all exactly the same as far as I can tell. So we have two of those. So that's just a thing that I have noticed. So 3 maps. And I have moved the camera in a little closer for this video and for probably the next few unboxing videos, but hopefully you still get a pretty good look. You'll recognize the typical Dean Essig Gamers map art, which some people dislike very strongly, but I have never had a particular problem with. It is, in almost every case, clear, and I find that totally valuable. So very happy with the map, and it's a big map. Again, 3 maps, absolutely typical map paper stock. And then we have the other 2, which I will not show you. I do like to give a sense of the map art even where I can't display the full map. So we have 4 counter sheets, 2 of which are the generic OCS 4.1 markers. Now, there's some different colors on here than are in mine, so we are going to, I think, cannibalize these, because I like to have different colors for things like air bases and equipment and packs and stuff like that. So we're going to actually get some good use out of these, but they're just standard OCS marker sheets. And the other 2 are the units. So here we have, let's see, here we have the North Koreans. Here we have the Communist Chinese. North Korean Air Force is very small. Here we have some more air bases in a different color, which is great, but that means there might be something special about them that I don't remember. We have some replacements down here for Blitzkrieg Legend. I am not sure where my copy of Blitzkrieg Legend is, by the way. And then we have U.S. forces, South Korean forces. We have some Commonwealth forces, and then the general international units. There's some Philippines units, Thais, Turks, ETH, I think, is Ethiopians, Dutch, French, Greek, and what I take to be Belgians. And then these UN, this is the US, it looks like air, UN and US air. And then these are possibly South Korean. That's possible. I don't know. Or they're US Navy. That's possible as well. Okay, so that's the counters. So I have to once again profusely thank Mr. Longshore for sending me this game that I have wanted. Like I played it and enjoyed it tremendously, and it was like the last piece of my OCS library that I just didn't have, and I would eventually have gotten around to ordering it, I'm sure. But you know, times are tough. And I really do appreciate it. Thank you, John, for sending me this copy of Korea: The Forgotten War. And thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to click on the bell icon to get notified when new content comes out. If you'd like to support Ardwulf's Lair, please do check out the Patreon and merch store links in the video description. Until next time, thanks for watching and happy wargaming.